all the destruction that Elsa accidentally inflicts on others. If she were a guy, would you be defending her, saying it's not her fault, she didn't know how to control herself?
Do you wanna build a snowman? Let it go, let it go.
Disney doesn't make them like they used to, and in my opinion, this is where the creative brain freeze began. Pretend to be surprised, I hated Frozen when it first came out, even before it was a cool thing to hate, but 10 years later, having rewatched it when all the hypes died down, I've warmed up to it a fraction of a bit. Frozen is by no means one of Disney's worst or even overrated movies, but I did sit there for the majority of the runtime just going, which is a shame, because there are a few redeeming qualities. The animation from a Disney movie you expect to be top-notch, and as always, it's extremely well done. The winter shades of blue and white just leap off of the screen, the backgrounds featuring the mountains, snowstorms, especially when snow interacts with the characters, it actually does feel tangible and this close to being photorealistic. In fact, there are a few sequences involving bodies of water and snowstorms where there are no characters, just the environment and the landscapes that, honestly, in my opinion, could pass as live action. The voice actors all fit their parts like gloves. I never thought I would say this about Kristen Bell, but it's absolutely true. She's the best part of this movie. She's perfectly cast as the naive optimist that you would expect from a story like this. She brings so much likable enthusiasm and energy towards Anna, where even in her dumbest moments, it's her noble intentions and her loyalty to her sister that still make you root for her. She doesn't really know the full extent of what's going on, and God, if she had this story, this movie wouldn't even exist. But what she knows for a fact is that she's been deprived of any relationship that she really has with her family. And it's the reason that, honestly, her stupidity feels incredibly justified. She has no plan whatsoever. She casually walks into danger without any idea as to what to expect, but she's willing to do just about anything in order to help Elsa. Adele Dazeem has the Broadway credentials that would make her perfect for a Disney musical, and even though Elsa's not a good character, and especially during Let It Go, you can tell that she's 2 decades too old for the part, but at the same time, Dazeem Diggs does everything that she can in order to elevate the character, and once in a while, just for her performance alone, you kind of feel a little bit of empathy for her, but that dissipates afterwards where you start to think about it after 5 seconds. Jonathan Groff is in the movie. That's really all I got to say about him, which disappoints me because I really love him as an actor, and he's not bad in Frozen, but Kristoff really doesn't have that much to do, and it doesn't help that you get another Broadway star to sing. That wasn't even really a song. You need, an actual big musical number for him to stand out as the boyfriend. Why do the Disney princes always get screwed over for a song? There's a reason people remember Evermore from the Beauty and the Beast remake, because it should have been in the original. As for Josh Gad as Olaf, I will admit that he didn't annoy or frustrate me as much as I thought he would, and that's probably because he whispers most of his jokes as opposed to screaming them, and in all fairness, he actually did get the one joke that I laughed audibly out loud, but at the same time, he's just not very funny in this. Now, if I'm going to talk about the songs in this movie, I should mention the songwriters and some of their other Broadway credentials, or even movie credentials for that matter. Everything is honey, everywhere I see. When God fucks you in the butt, hasadiga ibowai.
The internet is for porn. The internet is for porn.
Because, that screams Disney Renaissance ripoff, doesn't it? I mean, I love Book of Mormon and Avenue Q as much as the next person, but, wow. And rewatching this movie years later after all the hypes died down, you do realize it's not really the songs that were bad, it's just how overplayed they were. I mean, Let It Go was the one Disney song I've ever heard played on the radio before or after the movie, which, was that ever a thing? Let me know in the comments below, because that never happened in my small town. But, just listening to the songs as is, They're perfectly fine. The compositions have beautiful melodies, and the actors' singing voices just elevate the lyrics by 10. I didn't realize that Kristen Bell was that good of a singer, especially during For the First Time in Forever, where she really gets to hit a lot of good high notes. But outside of Let It Go, which is obviously the best song out of all of them, I can't really say I remember the lyrics to the songs all that much, just the titles of them, because they repeat the titles a lot. Okay, so if the animation, the acting, and the music is perfectly fine, what's wrong with the movie? The script. Every problem I have with this script comes down to how fast it's paced, the uneven amount of screen time that it gives each character, and as millions of people point out, that there are way too many plot conveniences that make the messages confusing. And I know that's a really weird thing to complain about with a Disney musical, because the Renaissance period that Frozen is trying so hard to replicate technically did have all the same problems that this movie does have. Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin were extremely convenient, but they knew when to make the more convenient moments plot-driven and the more natural, organic moments that make us fall in love with these characters be character-driven. Lion King and The Little Mermaid have messages that don't really make sense. If anything, they're kind of contradictory with what happens within the story. But the good news is, the characters themselves, the struggles that they're actually going through, you can identify with. You can still root for them, even if their actions don't always add up. You can always find something that you can relate to within these characters where you can forget about everything else. And of course, the other elements that worked about the movie in regards to the animation, the musical numbers, they were top-notch. They were more memorable than just their title sequences. It was a huge coincidence that Kristoff just happened to be there the day that Anna was rescued by the trolls, and they just happened to adopt him on the very same day, within the same moment, too. That Anna ever got hit by ice in the first place, you know, the one time that was objectively her fault, and she was a kid, so it was a mistake that was going to happen eventually. Despite the parents say that they were going to cut down on staff, it was a huge coincidence that there were absolutely no guards on night patrol when the king, queen, and princesses were sleeping, that they just happened to start playing and having snowball fights and whatever in this gigantic ballroom that how they cannot make a sound that nobody could hear. God. It was convenient of Anna to bump into Kristoff and Olaf at just the right moments, to fall in love at first sight with Hans at the worst possible moment. Hell, the reason Hans is such a terrible villain is just the amount of things that he doesn't plan out that just happen to fall into his lap. He barely plots out anything. There's nothing cunning or meticulous about him, and even when he does try to set things into motion, fucking anybody could have done that. And let's not forget, Elsa at the very end all of a sudden knows exactly how to control her powers within a matter of seconds, something that the trolls couldn't be able to accomplish in years, even though they knew a hell of a lot more about magic than her, which is kind of like saying that people do not need therapists in order to cure their depression or anxiety, which I know from experience that is a crock of shit. And yeah, you guys knew this was coming. Elsa's arc, if you could even call it that, has so many messages and elements to it that just do not add up whatsoever. Even with Anna, some people use her as a cautionary tale of not to give too much information about yourself towards strangers, like when she does fall in love with Hans. But at the exact same time, she does the exact same thing with Kristoff, the man that she just happens to fall in love and marry in the second one. Did that actually happen? I didn't see the second one, but yeah, I know that he questions her immediately when she admits that she got engaged to someone she just met, but I mean, just because he calls it out and says that it's stupid and questions her logic does not mean that he's inherently a good person too. He could have easily just been pretending to be upset with her in order to draw her in based on her naivete. That would have been a much more interesting twist, wouldn't you agree? And it doesn't even make sense for Han to pretend to be a good person. I mean, he could have started acting evil the second that Anna left the castle and then form an alliance with the Duke. The twist I think we all were expecting, and in all seriousness probably would have been a hell of a lot better. But let's go back to Elsa. She's not a good person. She's an ice hole. A major ice hole. 10 years later, how many people actually like this ice hole anyhow? Yo! I knew it, I'm surrounded by ice holes.
How many more puns does this guy have?
She gives new meaning to the phrase flake it until you make it.
Dude, don't you care about my liver?
Nope. Where she spends 90% of the movie avoiding any responsibility as a ruler, as a sister figure. It was rude of her to hide away from the truth and pretend to have no connection towards her sister whatsoever.
I have to work in the morning.
Keep drinking!
Especially because Anna was the one person that wasn't actually telling Elsa how to live her life. Kind of ironic that people consider Elsa an example of empowering female characters when she spends the majority of the movie doing what people have conditioned her to do, to repress herself. And seriously, does nobody see the irony in that? She, for whatever reason, never anticipates that she's going to have to interact with the outside world. She has no backup plan for when things go haywire. And does she even apologize for shit? I mean, Anna publicly took the blame for pushing her, which is interesting. Oh, and a lot of my friends are going to be disappointed if I don't mention this. All of the violence, all the destruction that Elsa accidentally inflicts on others. If she were a guy, would you be defending her, saying it's not her fault, she didn't know how to control herself? Only in private does Anna ever say that it wasn't actually her fault because nobody fucking told her. The only reason I know that Elsa even remotely cares for Anna is that act of true love that rescues her, which reminds me, when Maleficent came out, a lot of people complained that Maleficent ripped off the one act of true love, but even though I'd rather watch Frozen over Maleficent, Maleficent did the act of true love thing a hell of a lot better because Maleficent actually spent Aurora's entire childhood looking after her, so that connection between the two of them actually felt justified. Not only does Elsa barely spend any time with Anna even before the accident, she's not actually in the movie enough for you to really care about her as a character. And as much fun as Let It Go is to listen to, it's all about embracing your strengths and weaknesses and no longer hiding from the world. But the second that song is over, she goes right back to her usual self and does the polar opposite of the song.
Joke there.
What exactly are little kids, especially little girls, supposed to learn from Elsa as a role model? That your emotions are somehow not your fault? That they're out of your control? Except for when they conveniently are. And every one of these Disney movies moved at such a rapid-fire pace that a decent amount of things were left rushed or unresolved, but there were at least times where characters were able to just sit down, relax, and be their usual selves. That was the reason that we connected with these characters, the downtime that they have in between. The heart of this movie is supposed to be Elsa's relationship with Anna, but again, the two of them barely spend any time on screen together, let alone individually. Elsa, like I said, kind of feels like an extended cameo even though she's basically the front and center of the story. There's not enough time for you to even get invested with the two of them to begin with. And as much as I love Anna's enthusiasm and energy, does she really learn anything in the end? Not to mention, if you put all of these movies together, they would still have less exposition than Frozen and wouldn't be anywhere near as lazy when it comes down to it. Never mind that the Duke of Who Gives a Shit's literal first line is what his presence is as a villain, which makes Princess Diaries 2 look incredibly subtle. Olaf spells out the true love metaphor in case you seriously didn't watch it right in front of your eyes, or the trolls themselves didn't blurt out the true love melts a cold heart. That was seriously a line of dialogue. Hell, the trolls are literally there to talk about things that we don't know and sing about a romance that we can see from space. Hell, the dad saying that he'll come back and then 10 seconds later the ship sinks, which, was that supposed to be a parody of the dead parent cliche? You could have had a chandelier fall on his head afterwards and it would have still been better. And for all the exposition, there is still a decent amount of plot holes. As I said before, how can you cut back on staff to keep Elsa's secret even though there was no staff preventing the accident in the first place? Why didn't they take one of the trolls with them in order to study her powers and learn how to control them? Hell, what did they have to go to the trolls to do in order for her to control her magic when she can solve her problem in a matter of seconds? And if the troll wiped Anna's memories of magic, how come she remembers Olaf in the first place? Look, bottom line, I sat for Frozen, not mad, but not happy either. It's only after you watch it and you start to think about it and realize that Frozen's a bad movie that does have some redeeming qualities. But I think we can all agree the time has come to just let it go.
Is Rachel's Ziegler still talking?
Snowflake.